It was supposed to be a normal shift. Just another night in the packaging hall, sealing snack bags and humming gospel under her breath. But somewhere above, on a screen she never knew existed, a billionaire CEO watched her wipe a colleague's tears and smiled for the first time in months. He didn't know her name, didn't know her story, but he knew one thing the moment he saw her. That woman carries something the world doesn't teach: grace. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Heritage TV Modern Scrolls, where ancient truths meet modern life in the most powerful, relatable stories you've ever heard. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, turn on notifications, and join this family of believers walking through faith-filled storytelling every single week. Also share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your story could inspire someone today. Today's episode, buckle your seatbelt. We're diving into a modern retelling of Ruth, but not the way you've ever heard it before. A story of loss, loyalty, and faith in the middle of tragedy. A story of a billionaire who noticed a factory worker the world overlooked. And a story of the God who sees every tear. Some stories begin with fireworks, some with angelic visions. But Ruth's modern story breakthrough began with a man sipping coffee at 1:43 p.m., scrolling mindlessly through routine factory updates. Let's get into it. Ruth Harrington never planned for her life to look like this. Not at 28, not after so much prayer. Not after finally believing she had stepped into the happily ever after she begged God for. She sat in the small, brightly lit Grace Packaging Factory locker room, tying her hair into a bun, her fingers trembling slightly the way they did every morning. The hum of machines pulsed through the walls like a heartbeat. People chatted. Someone laughed. Someone else complained about the night shift. But Ruth? She just breathed. One breath in, one breath out. Not because she was nervous, but because every day still hurt. The accident had been 2 years and 8 months ago. 32 long months, and yet the memory clung to her life, like a shadow that refused to leave. Her husband, her David, gone. Her little boy, her Nathan, gone. Her world shattered. Just like Naomi in scripture, she had buried more than one loved one. She had felt the sting of emptiness, the weight of nights where the pillow stayed wet until morning. The ache of waking up, reaching for someone who wasn't there. But Ruth, modern Ruth, was different. She didn't walk away from her faith. She walked into it, even though she had converted to Christianity because of her husband and his family. After his death, she chose Jesus not out of marriage, not out of convenience, not out of pressure, but out of conviction, out of love. She remembered the night she gave her whole heart to Christ, on her knees, in her living room, whispering through tears, "Your people will be my people. Your God, my God," Ruth 1:16. From that day, she held on to the faith that held on to her. Most women in her situation would have returned home. Her friends even suggested it. "Ruth, your own parents live just 2 towns away. Why are you still staying with his mother? You've done enough." But Ruth always smiled gently and replied, "Family doesn't expire because someone died." Naomi, her mother-in-law, was aging and newly widowed herself. David had been her only child. Losing him broke her completely. And so, even after losing her husband and her son, Ruth stayed. She cooked for Naomi, took her to doctor appointments, made sure the bills were paid, held her when grief took the strength out of her legs. People whispered, family questioned, neighbors judged. But Ruth stayed. You left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with the people you did not know before. Ruth 2:11. Her pastor once said during service, "Some of the strongest faith is shown in the quiet decisions, staying when it's easier to leave, loving when there's no applause, serving when no one sees." But someone was about to see. Have you ever stayed loyal to someone even when it was hard? Comment faithful if you have. After the accident, bills piled, life didn't pause, and what used to be a joint income disappeared in one night. She needed work, any work. So when Grace Packaging Factory was hiring, she applied immediately. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. It wasn't what she used to dream about, but it was honest. Ruth worked the morning shift in Section B, the snack sealing line. Every day, she put on her gloves and hairnet. Every day, she greeted everyone with a smile. Every day, she did her best as though she were working for God, not people. Colossians 3:23. Her coworkers loved her. There was Joy, the young single mom struggling to pay her child's school fees. Ruth prayed with her every Friday. There was Mina, the older lady caring for her sick husband. Ruth always split her lunch so Mina would eat more. There was even Musa, the quiet security officer with a heavy accent and heavier problems. Sometimes Ruth would slip him a small envelope, just transport money. God bless you, and run off before he could protest. She didn't do it to be seen. She did it because kindness had become her language. Do you serve with joy even when no one notices? Write "God sees me" in the comments. Now, here's where the modern twist begins. The Grace Packaging Factory was owned by none other than Boaz Barrett, the 36-year-old billionaire CEO, owner of multiple manufacturing companies, tech hubs, logistics chains, and investments, designing eco-friendly food packaging, rarely smiling, and never visiting any of his factories personally. Most workers assumed he only existed on Forbes lists and business magazines. But that particular day, Boaz decided to stop by the Grace factory for a surprise inspection. Well, not physically. He entered the security room, hands in his pockets, suit crisp and dark blue, and told the head supervisor, "Pull up the live feeds, I want to see everything." 10 screens lit up, 10 different sections, 10 different stories, but he only saw one. Screen 4, Section B. A woman in a blue uniform hairnet, laughing with her colleagues, working fast, helping someone who dropped a box, patting another on the back in comfort, and then one moment that got him leaning forward, she lifted her head and smiled. Not the kind of smile you give because the camera is watching, not the kind you force the customers, not the shallow, tired workplace grin. It was warm. True. Hopeful. The supervisor beside him said casually, "Oh, that's Ruth Harrington, the one who came back after losing her husband and child, the one who still cares for her mother-in-law." Boaz blinked, coffee paused midair. There it was. A modern echo of Ruth 2:6. She is the young woman who came back with Naomi. He felt something he hadn't felt in years. A tug. A curiosity. A pull in his spirit. "Zoom in," he said quietly. The supervisor hesitated. "So, sir?" I said zoom in. He did. And on that blurry, slightly pixelated CCTV feed, Boaz saw something rare. Joy, strength, faith under pressure, light inside darkness. "Who is she?" he asked. And this time, he wasn't asking casually. Boaz Barrett wasn't the type of man who got distracted easily. Not by people, not by emotions, not by anything that didn't increase productivity or profit margins. But as the CCTV feed played, he found himself staring at the young woman in the blue hairnet with an intensity that surprised even him. Her movements were purposeful, gentle but strong, focused yet warm. She wasn't just working, she was serving. And she carried herself with the grace he'd rarely ever seen among his highly paid executives. It wasn't her beauty that caught him first, even though she had that in full. It wasn't her body or her smile or her posture. It was her spirit. Something about her reminded him of a line his grandmother used to quote, "A woman who fears the Lord shall be praised." Proverbs 31:30. He found himself whispering, "Who are you?" And for the first time in his career, he didn't mean someone's resume. Have you ever had a God-ordained encounter that changed your life? Share below. Meanwhile, down in Section B, Ruth was blissfully unaware of the eyes watching her from above. She was busy doing what she always did, encouraging, helping, serving. When she noticed Mina struggling to lift a box, Ruth hurried over. "Mina, leave it. I've got it." Mina shook her head. "You're too kind, Ruth. You've been through so much. You should rest sometimes." Ruth only smiled. "When God gives strength, we use it. Tomorrow isn't promised." Then she added, half joking, "And besides, you make the best puff puff. If I help you, you'll keep cooking for me." Mina laughed, wiping sweat from her forehead. Ruth's presence had a way of brightening the atmosphere, not forcing happiness, not pretending life was easy, but bringing a kind of quiet, stable hope. A hope that made people whisper, "That girl, there's something different about her." During a quick break, she stepped aside to drink water. The laughter in the room softened as her mind drifted, uninvited, to memories. David's smile when he proposed with a simple silver ring they had saved months to buy. Nathan's first cry. Their Sunday morning family worship, with Nathan banging a plastic spoon on the floor as if he was the church drummer. And then, the accident. Rain. A truck? A scream. A phone call. A hospital bed. An empty apartment. People said time healed wounds, but they never said how slowly it healed them. Ruth shook off the memory gently, whispering, "Lord, hold me." A simple prayer, a powerful one. When her shift ended at 5 p.m., Ruth clocked out, picked up her bag, and headed toward the bus stop. She needed to hurry. Naomi would be waiting for her evening medication. Every day after work, Ruth took care of Naomi like a daughter would. She cooked, cleaned, washed, encouraged, read the Bible to her. Sometimes Naomi would cry suddenly and whisper, "Ruth, I have nothing left to offer you. No more sons, no more future. Why do you stay?" And Ruth would sit beside her and squeeze her hand. Because love isn't a transaction, Mama, and because your God is my God. Ruth 1:16. Just like the biblical Ruth, her loyalty was witnessed. Even heaven noticed. Boaz was about to notice too. Boaz kept watching even after the supervisor finished giving his briefing. The supervisor cleared his throat. "Sir, shall I move to the next section?" But Boaz didn't respond. His eyes remained locked on the screen. Finally, he said, "What's her full name again?" "Ruth Harrington, sir." "Age?" 28. "Any disciplinary issues?" The supervisor laughed. "Sir, that girl is the reason half the staff still come to work. She's the one holding this place together." Boaz's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Interesting." Another question slipped out before he could stop it. "Is she married?" The supervisor hesitated, his tone softening. "No, sir. Her husband died 3 years ago. Their little boy, too. It was really tragic." Boaz inhaled slowly. Something in his chest tightened. Not pity, not sympathy. Respect. Profound, deep respect. Then he said something that shocked the entire room. "I want to meet her." That evening, Ruth returned home exhausted. She cooked for Naomi, helped her take her medication, cleaned the living room, folded the laundry. Only after Naomi had fallen asleep did Ruth finally collapse onto her bed. She reached for her worn-out Bible, the one her husband gifted her the day she gave her life to Christ. Inside the cover, the inscription said, "May God reward your kindness 1,000-fold. Love, David." A tear slipped down her cheek. She whispered, "Lord, I don't ask for much, just strength for tomorrow and peace for tonight." As she closed her eyes, she had no idea. The answer to that prayer had already begun watching her from a CCTV screen. And tomorrow, for the first time, their worlds would collide. Have you ever had a God-ordained encounter that changed your life? Share below. The next morning felt ordinary to Ruth, but heaven was already rearranging pieces behind the scenes. She got up early, bathed Naomi, prepared breakfast, prayed with her, and hurried out the door. The chilly air brushed her cheeks as she walked toward the bus stop, clutching her bag. She didn't know it yet, but today was her Ruth 2 moment, the day she just happened to arrive in the field of the one who would change her life. Just like the Bible said, as it turned out, she found herself working in the field belonging to Boaz. Ruth 2:3. As it turned out, by chance, coincidentally, but really, divinely arranged. Today was her as it turned out day. Boaz didn't usually show up at his factories. His assistants knew it. His drivers knew it. Even he knew it. But he woke up with an unusual pull. Not a romantic urge, no. He didn't even know this woman personally. It was something deeper. A sense that he needed to see something again. To feel something he felt yesterday on the CCTV screen. That spark of life. That echo of faith. That glimpse of joy in the mundane. He arrived unannounced at Grace Packaging Factory, stepping out of his black SUV with purpose. His team scrambled, clipboards flying, hurry walks echoing down the corridor. But he wasn't interested in formalities today. He walked straight to Section B, and when he opened the heavy factory doors, the world seemed to blur. Section B was loud and busy. Snack bags rattled, machines hummed, the conveyor belt moved like a mechanical river. And there she was, helping a new staff member who kept fumbling with the ceiling handle. "No, gently," she said with a patient smile. "Like this. Yes. Perfect. Don't worry, you'll get it." Then she patted the woman's arm in reassurance. Boaz watched, mesmerized. He had seen hundreds of employees. He had seen thousands of workers. But none worked with this kind of heart. Just like Ruth 2:10 says she bowed down in humility, Ruth's entire demeanor was humility. And just like Ruth 2:11 says Boaz had heard of her kindness, Boaz too had seen it firsthand through a grainy CCTV feed. Now here it was live, unfiltered, unstaged, pure. The supervisor clapped loudly, cutting through the noise. "Attention everyone, the CEO is here." The workers froze, machines hummed on, but hands stopped, mouths dropped open, eyes widened. "The CEO? Boaz Barrett? Here!" People straightened their uniforms. Some wiped their hands nervously. Others whispered, "Is something wrong? Did someone complain?" But Ruth simply bowed her head respectfully. She didn't scramble. She didn't panic. She didn't pretend. She stood with a calm dignity that stunned Boaz. Boaz approached her slowly, hands in his pockets, trying not to look too fascinated. "You're Ruth," he said, his voice even but gentle. She blinked, surprised he knew her name. "Yes, sir. Good morning. You work here every day?" "Yes, sir." "You enjoy the work?" She smiled with quiet sincerity. "Every day is an opportunity, sir. Some days are harder than others, but God gives strength." Her words pierced him. She said them casually, like it was normal to testify in a factory line. But to Boaz, who grew up hearing about God but drifted away as wealth expanded, her faith stirred something inside him. He nodded. "Your supervisor speaks very highly of you." Ruth bowed her head slightly. "All glory to God, sir. I just do my best." There it was again, humility. Then she added softly, "And this job has been a blessing. It has helped me take care of my mother-in-law." Boaz studied her for a long moment. A young widow, working long shifts, serving an elderly in-law, still smiling, still encouraging others. Who was this woman? Joy, Mina, and the others watched from a distance, their eyes wide. Joy whispered, "Ruth, if he offers you a promotion, please carry me along." Mina nudged her. "Forget promotion. What if God wants to rewrite her story?" Even Musa, the security man, shook his head in awe. "That girl is shining. CEO Seth noticed." Their whispers fluttered around the room, but Ruth ignored them. She was speaking with respect, with composure, with faith as her anchor. As Ruth talked about her life, without self-pity, without complaint, Boaz felt something heavy inside him shift. Not love, not infatuation, not attraction. Something deeper, admiration, reverence. Oh, the same all Boaz in scripture felt when he said, "I've heard all about what you've done." Ruth 2:11. It was the same energy, the same holy recognition, the same moment heaven said, "This is a daughter of mine. Honor her." Boaz swallowed, his voice softer than before. "Ruth, would you mind showing me how your section works? I'd like to see it from your perspective." "Mine?" she thought. Who cares about a factory worker's perspective? But she nodded, humble yet confident. "Yes, sir, it would be my honor." Family? Imagine someone with more knowledge and status asking you to show them how things work. How would you react? Would you panic? Freeze? Start sweating? Or stay calm like Ruth? Tell me in the comments. Honestly, I want to hear your reaction. Boaz followed Ruth through the factory like a student following a teacher. At first, employees tried to straighten up or pretend to work faster. But after a few minutes, something unusual happened. The entire atmosphere shifted. Because Boaz wasn't just inspecting the place, he was watching Ruth. How she interacted, how she served, how she carried herself with a maturity far beyond her age. And he was learning. Ruth stopped beside the conveyor belt. "Sir, this is the packaging line. We separate the unsealed pouches here, place them properly here, and seal them like this." She demonstrated, her hands moving with confident precision. Boaz watched her closely. How long did it take you to master this? He asked. She smiled. Not long. The first month was hard. I nearly burned myself twice, but God helped me. The supervisor beside them almost choked. Who casually tells a billionaire that God helped them seal snacks? But Boaz wasn't offended. He was intrigued. God helped you? He repeated. Yes, sir, Ruth said without hesitation. He helps me with everything. Even small things matter to him. Her simplicity was refreshing, like cold water on a tired soul. Just then, a loud thud echoed across the section. A stack of boxes slipped from a high shelf, falling toward a new worker who didn't see it coming. Ruth reacted immediately. She pulled the woman out of the way just as the boxes hit the floor. The new worker trembled, tears in her eyes. Ruth held her gently and said, You're okay, just breathe. Once things calmed down, Ruth quietly helped clean up the mess, reassuring the shaken worker as she picked up the scattered boxes. Boaz watched the whole scene, impressed. This wasn't for show. This was her natural character. The supervisor hurried over. Ruth, are you all right? That was close. I'm fine, she said simply. God protected us. Boaz stepped closer, still puzzled by her calmness and compassion. Ruth, why do you care so much? You're not required to handle all this, he said, genuinely curious. Sir, when you've walked through deep loss and God carried you, you don't know how not to care for others. Comfort becomes your calling. Her words hit him like a wave. Comfort becomes your calling. He had never heard anything like that. For a brief second, just a heartbeat, Ruth and Boaz locked eyes. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't even emotional. Not really. It was spiritual. Like two stories touching for the first time. Like heaven nudging earth. Like destiny whispering, You two, pay attention! Ruth looked away shyly. Boaz cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the strange spark he felt. Boaz pulled the supervisor aside while Ruth continued working. That woman, how long has she been here? He asked again. 8 months, sir. Started 2 years after her husband and son died in a car crash. Boaz winced. Yes, sir. Hardworking, no drama, no complaints. She even donates part of her salary to the prayer group for widows. Boaz blinked. A factory worker donating? Yes, sir. That's Ruth. She's always giving something. Then the supervisor added, almost proudly, and she still goes home to take care of her mother-in-law every night. That woman would have died if not for Ruth. Boaz looked back at Ruth, who was laughing softly with Mina. His heart whispered, Blessed is the one who takes refuge in the Lord. Was this what grace looked like in human form? As Boaz prepared to leave Section B, he walked back to Ruth. Ruth? She turned, polite and attentive. Yes, sir. I appreciate what you did today, and everything you do for your team. Would you be willing to meet me in my office after your shift? I'd like to discuss opportunities. Her eyes widened. Me, sir? Yes, you? Ruth swallowed. She wasn't used to being singled out, but she nodded humbly. If it will glorify God, sir, I'll be there. Boaz felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. Most people said, Yes, sir, thank you, sir, God bless you, sir. But Ruth, if it will glorify God, who talks like that? Only someone who actually means it. Family. If your boss suddenly invited you to his office to discuss opportunities, what's the first thing you'd think? Promotion? Suspicion? Fear? Excitement? Tell me in the comments, I'm reading. Ruth finished her shift with trembling hands. Not because she was afraid, but because she didn't understand why she, of all people, had to meet the CEO in his office. She had never even been on the top floor of the admin building. She had never dragged attention to herself. She had zero ambition for climbing corporate ladders. She just wanted to work, serve, and honor God while taking care of Naomi. That was enough. Still, as she washed her hands and straightened her uniform, a scripture whispered in her heart, Do not be afraid. You have found favor. Luke 1:30. Was this favor? Could God really open doors for someone like her? After work, she walked toward the admin block. Joy ran to catch up with her. Ruth, CEO wants to see you. My sister, you've entered another level. Ruth laughed softly. Joy, please don't start. Mina walked up too, fanning herself dramatically. Girl, let God be praised. If he makes you a supervisor, I will be your deputy. Just sign me in. Even Musa, the security officer, called out, Ruth, we are praying for you. No fear. Ruth waved at all of them, embarrassed but grateful. By the time she reached the elevator, her palms were sweating. She whispered, Lord, go before me. Upstairs, Boaz stood in his spacious office overlooking the city. He checked his watch, adjusted his tie, sat down, stood up again, walked to the window, walked back. Why was he nervous? He had interviewed ministers, governors, investors worth billions. Yet the thought of talking to one factory worker made his heart beat unevenly, reverently. There was something about Ruth that demanded respect without her even trying. When his assistant knocked, Sir, Miss Ruth Harrington is here. Boaz inhaled deeply. Send her in. The door opened quietly. Ruth stepped in with humility and quiet strength. Boaz's breath caught, not because she was glamorous, but because she carried that same radiant simplicity even in this intimidating space. Good evening, sir, she said. Boaz gestured to the chair across from him. Please sit. She sat carefully, hands folded in her lap. There was a long moment where neither spoke. Then Boaz broke the silence. I watched you work today, Boaz began. And yesterday, on the cameras. Ruth blinked, startled. On the cameras? Yes, he said. I saw how you cared for your colleagues, how you worked diligently, how you calmed that new worker after the accident. He paused. Most people don't behave that way when no one is watching. She lowered her gaze. I didn't know anyone was watching, sir. That's exactly the point, he said quietly. He sat forward. Ruth, why are you so kind, truly? Ruth wasn't prepared for that question. Most CEOs asked about productivity, performance, output. But he was asking about her heart. After a thoughtful silence, she said, Sir, because God was kind to me, even in my darkest days. Boaz swallowed, something shifting inside him. What dark days? He asked gently. Her voice went soft. When I lost my husband and my son in the same accident, I didn't think I would survive it, but God carried me. He healed me slowly. And now, I want to be a vessel that comforts others the way he comforted me. Boaz felt the weight of her words settle heavily on him. She wasn't quoting a sermon. She was living one. He felt a lump forming in his throat. It caught him off guard. He looked away, pretending to review documents, but the truth was, he was moved. Deeply. He had met thousands of people in his corporate journey. None had spoken about God with such authenticity. None had spoken about pain with such hope. None had spoken about loss with such surrender. He finally asked, Ruth, do you ever feel angry at God for what you lost? She thought for a moment. Yes, she said honestly. At first I did. I cried until I had no tears left. I questioned everything. Her voice steadied. But then I realized that grief doesn't change God's goodness, and loss doesn't erase his love. I still believe he has a plan, even when I don't understand it. Boaz exhaled slowly. He felt something breaking inside him, not in a painful way, but in a freeing way. For years, he had buried his faith under layers of success and ambition. For years, he had shut spiritual doors because of disappointments he didn't like to admit. But Ruth's words, they stirred something sleeping inside him. Then it happened. A tear, small, single, unexpected, escaped from Boaz's eye. He wiped it quickly, embarrassed. I'm sorry, my allergies. But Ruth said softly, It's okay, sir. Sometimes hearts need to breathe. Boaz froze. No one has spoken to me like that in years, he confessed. Ruth smiled gently. I didn't mean to offend. You didn't, he interrupted. You reminded me of something I forgot. He didn't elaborate. He couldn't, but Ruth understood. Boaz cleared his throat, switching to a more businesslike tone even though he still felt off balance emotionally. I want to offer you a position, Ruth. She looked up, alarmed. A position, sir? Yes, Boaz said. A better one, with higher pay, better hours, and closer interaction with management. Have you ever received unexpected favor? Comment, God is faithful. Ruth's brows knitted together in confusion. But sir, I'm not qualified for office work. Boaz smiled slightly. You qualify more than you know. She hesitated. I'll pray about it, sir. He blinked, surprised by her words, but he respected her even more for it. Please do, he said. As Ruth stood to leave, Boaz rose too. Their eyes met again. This time, something passed between them. Not romance, not yet. Maybe attraction, and something deeper. Recognition. As if heaven itself whispered, this story isn't finished. Ruth bowed respectfully. Thank you, sir. God bless you. Boaz murmured. He already has. She frowned slightly. Sir? He shook his head, smiling to himself. Nothing. Have a safe evening, Ruth. As she walked out, Boaz stood alone in his office, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Family, what do you think Ruth should do? Should she accept this new position, step out of the shadows and walk boldly through a door that might be God sent? Or should she stay cautious, stay humble, stay low, and protect her heart from unexpected attention? Is this a blessing in disguise, or is it too sudden to trust? The story is about to shift. Destiny is about to unfold, and I want you to be part of the journey. Drop your thoughts, your theories, your prayers, and your predictions in the comments. Your voice matters, and you just might help someone else see what God is doing in this story. And listen, if you're feeling hooked already, if you're sensing God stirring something in your own life through Ruth's courage, then don't miss what happens next. Because part 2, family, is where destiny collides with romance, redemption, and divine orchestration. It's where the story takes a turn that not even Ruth sees coming. So before you go, hit like to support this story. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2. Turn on the notification bell so you're the first to know when the next chapter drops. And share this with someone who needs encouragement today. This is Heritage TV, Modern Scrolls, where ancient faith meets modern life, and where your story can meet God's grace. See you in part 2, where the real miracle begins. God bless you.